Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And seriously, my luck. Every time I think that, okay, I've done a podcast and I'm done and I'm going to now sit in peace, something else comes up that forces me to pick up the mic and start another one. And as you know, when I do one podcast, I suddenly find so many other subjects that come in front of me or come to mind, and then I end up doing 3-4 podcasts in a row, and then I have days on end when I don't do anything. I'm sure my listeners are relieved on those days because it's weird. I know it's weird, but it's just that, okay, this is an important topic. In fact, this is related to a similar topic that I have been, constantly one way or the other weaving in through my episodes, all my episodes throughout my podcast, and that is the Privacy Act. Remember, I've always berated the US for destroying the Privacy Act, just in order to get the Surveillance Act, which they call the Patriot Act in America. Just in order to get that passed, the lengths to which the then President Bush Jr., the lengths he went through, right? He literally threatened people, and then he created the whole 9/11 mess. So lives weren't important to him. He had to get that Patriot Act through so that he could use the NSA to revoke the Privacy Act of every single individual, not just in America, but unfortunately, he violated human rights and privacy laws all over the world by forcing other governments in Europe, starting with the UK, and then, gradually in other parts of Europe, and then in other countries that they call their allies, so where they can now literally exploit the surveillance of all the governments, and piggyback on their, for example, on their CCTV and on their surveillance, basically. This is very dangerous. And so now suddenly the Americans are, crying about how everything is on the internet and nobody's getting any privacy, and the TikTokification of for example, teachers, how teachers in America are now moonlighting as influencers. And unfortunately, most of those teachers are teachers that teach, minors, as in it's most probably, grade 1, grade 2, it's elementary school, it's primary school. And and now parents are thinking, see, first of all, your own parents have violated your privacy by putting you in their vlogs, right? In America, in Europe, and even in Pakistan, I guess. But in Pakistan, most parents tend to blur their children or keep their children out of the whole vlogging thing. But when you have family vloggers, for example, and when you have others, fine, maybe, okay, so you're comfortable having your children in the vlogs and your children are okay with it and all, that's fine. But now imagine that the children are being vlogged at home, and then now they have to go to school to be vlogged there too, and they have no say, which is, as I've repeatedly reminded people of how privacy laws are extremely important in the Islamic framework. And dignity, remember, dignity, self-respect, humiliation, how the Prophet, peace be upon him, gives great stress to respecting a child. Yes, believe it or not. And as he said that, he who doesn't respect their elders and who doesn't show kindness and generosity and consideration towards children are not amongst us. In other words, you're not considered Muslims if you do not show due respect to your elders, and if you do not treat a younger child kindly and with consideration. And also remember the time when he went to visit a sick child, and the sick child was still not apparently 100% well. He was still rehabilitating, but he wasn't 100% well, I guess. So he involuntarily ended up peeing, on the Prophet's lap while sitting on it. And his father was so chagrined that he literally wanted to berate his child, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, stopped him and said, "Oh, stop. If you take away his self-respect now here in public in front of others, where do you think he's going to bring it back from? That is a valuable lesson, which I keep on and on reminding people that in our culture, we seem to take pride in the fact that parents insult their children and parents abuse their children and parents beat their children and they smack their children. No matter how older their children grow up to be, parents act as if they own their children, and they think that it's a matter of pride that no matter what they do or how they behave, their children still show them respect. As I said, it says nothing about you as a parent, but it says a lot about your child. And this is one such place where God says that He will actually reward your child for being a nice person, despite the fact that you didn't deserve any credit for it. Instead, you will be punished for doing all that you did, and you will not get credit for the fact. For example, we tend to, give credit to parents saying that, oh, you brought up your child so well, they're so well mannered, they're so nice, and it becomes it's not your pride. It's actually something that God is going to shame you on in the day of judgment, when He's going to say that this is how you treated my human being, my creature, my creation. I gave that creation to you, to take care of, and this is what you did to them. You stripped them of their self-respect. You constantly berated them. You insulted them. You humiliated them. You beat them. You did all this shit to them. And now you think you're going to take credit for bringing them up well because what? Because they didn't smack you back? No, you're not getting any credit. You're going to get punished. And the credit is all the child's for still remaining a good person despite all the violence and all the stupidity and all the shit that he's gone through thanks to his parents. So, Aiki, that is why I'm always going back to parents, why I always say, if you look around and see that your culture, your society is becoming toxic, it begins at home. The first people to humiliate you are your parents. The first people to abuse you are your parents. The first people to lie to you are your parents. The first people to show hypocrisy are your parents. The first people to harm you and give you loss in life are your parents, and it's a fact. And these are wounds you can never outgrow, and that is why the cycle doesn't break. So you grow up to be just like your parents, and so it's a never-ending cycle. Very few people manage to break out of it. So now, when people are now wondering about how scandalous it is that the teachers are moonlighting as influencers and TikTokers, and that they're not even blurring the faces of their children, of the students who they're, teaching, and they're recording everything, and, in America, there is the FERPA, and the FERPA doesn't pertain to the teachers, it pertains to the schools, so it becomes the school's responsibility, but the schools probably do, and the district's responsibility, and they don't have a clue, and this and that. That is all fine. It's very good that the vloggers are picking this up. But again, do the people even realize why they are at this point? It begins at home, and it begins with your government. Your government denied privacy. There was a reason why the Privacy Act or the privacy laws were created. It was to fundamentally protect one's private life, one's privacy. And these laws still exist in all countries, despite the fact that in almost every single country, the government is either in hiding or openly violating these privacy laws every single minute of every single day. When you have CCTV cameras all around the streets, you may consider that it's safety purposes and it's this and it's that, but at the same time, you are violating people's privacy. When you have when as a government you suddenly decide that now you can listen into people's conversations and you can hack the apps that they use and wiretap them or go through their messages or start recording all their calls, you have violated their privacy. You have violated privacy laws, and all governments are doing this at some point or another. Every single government, especially governments like ours, which is an illegal government, which is planted by the Americans, so they're following the American Patriot Act in a way, which doesn't apply to Pakistan, but they're following it and they're applying it here. So America has, I'm sorry to say, been behind most of these atrocities, committed worldwide. America is 100% to be blamed for stripping people of their privacy laws. America is the one behind this whole caboodle, this whole Pandora's box that has been opened, where now everybody, and that is why American government is not even in the position to question or stop anybody, because in the name of, free speech, you are allowed to do anything that violates other people. But when the other person who's being violated will respond, then suddenly that's no longer free speech. No, then that becomes either a hate crime or a hate speech, or it becomes, a crime in general. As you can see, the way Metaverse and YouTube and all your American-based social media are treating posts that are highlighting what's going on in, for example, occupied Kashmir in India, or highlighting what is going on in Palestine. Or even when we're trying to highlight what our government and our army is doing, they're allowed to just go through our posts and delete them and censor them and then shadow ban us. And then you find out that, oh, all of a sudden you're no longer part of the algorithm. So this is something that the American websites have been practicing for a very long time, because I've talked about it when I talked about how Amazon actually has been shadow banning many books of many writers that they felt that were contradicting the narrative that the American government liked to push through. And now, again, the American government, once again, is the source of what is happening in America today, which is blatant violations of privacy. You're talking about children. Look at the people in the background. And that is why I find it very funny. Remember once I mentioned how I found it very ironic and sarcastic, and I was sarcastic about it, that the white people, when they see Asian bloggers, they automatically assume that they are probably not natives, even if they are natives. They just look at their face and they see the cameras and they think, oh, they're foreigners or tourists and they're vlogging. And then they act very rudely towards them and say, not everybody wants to be in your camera. And yet these same white people are going around vlogging every single thing in every single country they go to, and they don't realize the fact that they are also vlogging, and in their vlogs they're showing real life people who don't even know them, and they didn't even ask their permission, and they feel they don't need to because, oh, they're part of the background. And that is one of the things that I said, that when vloggers complain about how when they go to different countries, and in certain countries people whip out their mobiles and they start recording them, well, hello, who started it first? You're the ones who are vlogging everybody around you. You probably didn't even bother to realize the fact that, okay, at least you should blur their faces. No, you consider them part of your scenic background, and you feel that if you blur their faces, then God forbid your whole panoramic view is going to get spoiled. It won't get the vibes, that you have people behind you. So you think that all these people behind you are background, like they are in Getty's images, or in Reuters, or in the news networks when they take shots of traffic and of people of people crossing roads and this and that, and they're showing busy hours or peak hours or non-peak hours or whatever. And so you think that because the news has used this footage, or Getty's images are using these footages and everything, so you're also vloggers, so it's automatically subject to open license. But if it's open to subject, if it's open to, if it's subject to open license, then so are you. So why shouldn't they whip out their mobiles and start recording you? Because now they want to find out who you are. You see, they are actually whipping out their mobiles, not because you're a foreigner, but because you're a foreigner holding a camera and you're vlogging. And so they want to know, they're curious now as to who you are. You didn't ask them. Did you? You didn't ask for their permission when you went around vlogging and having them in the background. You didn't care about that, but it's you. So if it's on you, now you care. So it's the same problem. It's just recurring, and it will be exaggerated with time. You'd think that schools are supposed to be a safe place. In America, as I said, in America, the whole trend of not respecting one's privacy began with your own government. And your government has disrupted the privacy of people all over the world. So it's not a surprise that there is no longer this respect for privacy in America. Because this is how it is now. This is how it's going to be. If you want your privacy to be respected, you need to start respecting the Privacy Act, the privacy laws. And this is actually the reason, one of the major reasons why, when people found out about the Patriot Act, when they found out about how AT&T was being used by the American government to uh, put surveillance and again wiretap and record calls of civilians, and how they literally made up you know, false charges. They literally made up trumped up charges against Muslims after the 9/11 charade. And so many innocent Muslims were imprisoned illegally, charged illegally, when they were put through fake trials, or just farcical trials, and they were put in prison. They were not just in any prison, they were sent to the torture black sites, like Guantanamo Bay, and then they were sent there to be tortured just because they're Muslims. Do you know how many Muslim students who reached America, who were unfortunate enough to have their visas accepted, and then they spent all that money and they went only to be basically kidnapped from the American airport by the authorities, because you had suddenly now decided that the whole world has to comply with your Patriot Act, and so you can just kidnap and imprison anybody under your Patriot Act, where you didn't need a warrant and you didn't need to tell them about their rights, and they had no rights. So I mean, this spillage is going to come out. I'm sorry, but if you're thinking that this is scandalous, that your teachers are now becoming TikTokers and there's no privacy and the children are being exposed to the internet and all, as I said, it begins at home. But I'm glad that people are talking about it, because but the thing is that people are not realizing that these are the repercussions. Remember, actions have consequences, and there's a long chain of consequences happening here, by that one action, that one act that the American government did, where it enabled the Patriot Act, and that became the death of the privacy law. So yeah, I'm sorry, but nobody actually has any privacy left today. I mean, gone were the days when privacy was considered so important that everybody knew that, oh no, this is private. But then now people have no sense of privacy of their own. They're literally airing all their laundry on the internet, which again, it's up to them. It's as long, look, if you're doing it yourself, then nobody should have a problem with it, because if you're okay talking about your private lives and your private problems on the internet, that's up to you and that's your prerogative. But if you're bringing a third party and you're trying to air their laundry, or you're trying to talk about something that's very private to them, but again, as I said, this act begins at home. How many of us can safely say that our parents respected our privacy? Not a single one of us, by the way. Not a single one of us here in Asia. I don't care if you're from China or from Japan or from Korea or from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, or even, parts of the Middle East. No, our parents, I mean, even if you look at Sri Lanka, if you look at Nepal, Bhutan, I don't care which country you're from, but this is an insanely centuries old thing in Africa, in Asia, and it used to be even in Europe, and I think it still is in certain families in Europe and America and Canada and even Australia. There you will always have that thing where parents seem to think that it's their right to not care about their children's self-respect, because according to them, their children was like, what do you know, how do you just shut up and sit down. It's that kind of an attitude that parents do have. Okay, children are treated like that at the end of the day, as if they have no say, and they have no right to have any say, and so they have no privacy, and they have no say in their privacy, and that is again where you strip them of their self-respect. So you have already stripped your children of their self-respect. What more do you expect them to do? And then you're like sitting there looking scandalized by how the Gen Z is talking very openly about anything and everything under the sun on the internet. Seriously? Who? Again, it begins at home. Did you ever make them think how important it was for them to maintain their privacy? Did you ever respect their privacy? No, you didn't. Did you ever think about the fact that they're human beings who need to develop a sense of self-respect and privacy. No, you didn't. You expected that they should automatically get the sense of it when they grow up. And yet you are the first obstacle throughout their growing stages as well. Even as teenagers, you are the first obstacle in their attempt at regaining their lost self-respect. And I would say regaining, because as I said, as children, you've already stripped them of their self-respect. You never gave them that self-respect. You never allowed them to have it. And you never gave them respect, So what are they supposed to do? It's you, the adults, that have been constantly violating children's privacy. And then you think that, why is another adult doing it? You, as an adult, have been doing it to your own children. So obviously, other adults are in the same frame of mind as you are, and they're going to do it to your children too, be it at school or be it in any other place. And this is also why you're getting this. Before, we used to have at least a somewhat professional, atmosphere at work, but now even that line is being blurred, and very badly so, where people, despite all the strictness about harassment and about toxic environment and this and that and blah blah, but still, now have you noticed how actually there is more and more encroachment upon one's personal space, even at the workplace? When you're crammed like chickens, have you seen how most of the workspaces are designed? There's the so-called modern workspaces, how they're designed. It's like chickens in a coop. So where's that personal space? Yeah, no, we need to redefine what privacy means. We need to redefine what personal space is. We need to redefine boundaries. And we need to once again address this issue on a political level, on a constitutional level, and on a governmental level, because there is no other way, and obviously at home, it all begins at home. See how well you are doing in respecting your kids and allowing them to maintain their self-respect. See what role you're playing in their lives, and then go on to complain about others, because as I said, the whole notion of privacy is gone. It's long gone, and it went because of your government's Patriot Act. Like it or not, believe it or not, there's always a source, and the source of stripping one from one's privacy began at your own government. It began from there, it began at that level, and it just made everything okay. In the name of freedom, again, in the name of freedom of speech or freedom of expression, this is all being just hurriedly just piled onto, this is also part of it. This is all of, you're just cramming everything into it. So yeah, I think you shouldn't even be surprised, because as I said, these kids are being subjected to it at home too. You've got their parents vlogging, and they have their children there in the vlogs. Did you ever bother to ask your children if they wanted to be in your vlogs or not? I'm sure there are many parents who have asked their children, and their children are happy, and they probably think that they're helping their children gain confidence. That is also another way how parents are thinking. They're like, they'll gain confidence because they'll be in front of the camera, they'll be in front of the world. But I have seen certain families where or certain vloggers, where they may have begun with their kids all happy and fine being in front of the camera, but as the kids grew older, they became more and more averse to getting in front of the camera, and those parents respected them, and they started giving them their space, but not well enough, it seems, because they do seem to still want to include their kids, who are now grown-ups or adults, into their camera. And you can actually see the fact that their kids do not want that they're not comfortable. And you get surprised a bit, because you would think that, when we looked at their old vlogs, the kids were actually smiling in front of the camera, they were comfortable and all. But notice how the older they grew, the more uncomfortable they became. Again, why? Because of their sense of privacy, which you, as a parent, think it's okay for you to encroach upon, because you're a family. It's amazing how parents think about family when they want their kids to, do whatever it is that they want. But when their kids want to do something on their own, then no. Then there's no family support. Then there's no, we're all a family, let's do it together. No, no. Then it's like, I want you to do this, and how can you do this, and why are you going on that way, and I want, then that ownership creeps in. So yes, parents are basically, even now, unconsciously or consciously, treating their kids as properties, as assets that they own. It's a fact. It's not just an Asian thing. You can see that it is a global thing. So yes, it is very, very, very disturbing and very concerning that in the West, and again, once again, beginning in America, this is not something you will see in Europe, and this is definitely not something you will see in Muslim countries or in Asia, where we especially dislike or discourage these things. And it's not something that we look at positively, especially when you're targeting children. I mean, or anybody, literally. As you will notice, there are many vloggers, local vloggers also, who keep on and on, reiterating in their vlogs that we are not going to show people who don't want to come. If people want to come voluntarily into our vlog and be a part of it, they're most welcome, but we are not going to show our family members just to make you people feel satisfied that, oh, because you're constantly harping about how you want to see our family members. No, that's not it. This is what you get, take it or leave it. So the sense of privacy, the stressing on the sense of privacy is once again been given importance to in our countries, because in our countries too, by the way, many people went out of their way. They encroached upon the privacy of their families. They exposed their family members, and people who wanted them to expose their family members then started making snide comments about them. So people, again, you should never, even if you're a vlogger, even if you want likes, even if you want ratings, even if you want views, whatever it is that you want to grow your subscription list, whatever it is. But just for that, you should not put your family or yourselves at risk. You should not try to please your audience to the extent where the same audience, because listen, people are the same, whether they're part of your YouTube community or any other community, whether it's real life or it's digital life, it's virtual or it's non-virtual, people are the same, and people are a-holes. People are hypocrites, and they're a-holes, they're perverts, and they are generally not good. So don't put on an act to please people. You just be you, you do you, and those who are validly interested will join you. Those who are not will not, and good for you, actually, because those who shouldn't be a part of your community will not be. If you get those kind of weird-assed people who come and start egging you on to show more of yourself, or show more of your family, or show more of your private lives, or that something's wrong there. Those people, there's something's wrong with those people. So I would say it again and again, that it's true that, okay, vlogging has become a profession in the sense that it is something through which you can earn money. So having vlogs on YouTube, becoming a TikToker, Instagramming, all that has become a profession. I understand that, but keep your limits, adhere to them, stick to those limits, and do only what you need to do. Keep it professional, because it is a profession. At the end of the day, keep it professional, just like any other profession. This thing about nurses violating their patients' privacy, and about teachers violating their students' privacy, you will see more of that again, because this has now become the new norm in a country that literally stripped you all of your privacy laws. So a country that has the Patriot Act, you cannot expect that country and its people to adhere to privacy rules strictly, seriously. You will need to redefine privacy all over again. You will need to reenact a privacy law all over again, and you will need to add all these things in. I mean, in Islam, we can actually we see precedents from which we already know what is right and what is wrong, and we can say it very safely that according to the Islamic law, it is actually not right. It is encroachment upon another person's personal space, and it is an encroachment upon the other person's privacy. And yet, as I said, who cares about Islam when at the end of the day, everybody just wants to make money, and everybody just wants to do what everybody else is doing, and everybody wants to, keep on crossing those boundaries to see how far they can go. So money is the new God. That's what I'm saying. Money is the new God. But there we are. Once again, we've got again something that nobody would even realize, that this single act of revoking the privacy laws and enacting the Patriot Act could lead to this. And I know you would try to think that no, it has no relate. It has. Try to understand, connect the dots and understand, and you will see that yes, that is how it ultimately began. That is where the death of privacy began. And it will now encroach upon every part and every aspect of our lives. Well, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.